H. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, is often considered America's first documented serial killer. Active during the late 19th century, Holmes is infamous for constructing a twisted murder castle in Chicago during the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. This hotel was far from ordinary. It was a labyrinth of secret rooms, soundproof chambers, trapdoors, and hidden passageways designed specifically for trapping, torturing, and murdering his victims. Holmes used the fair's influx of visitors to attract unsuspecting customers, many of whom were young women. Holmes was a master manipulator, using his charm and intelligence to lure victims into his deadly web. His crimes were not limited to murder. He was also a con artist and a swindler who engaged in insurance fraud and identity theft. Though he confessed to 27 murders, some historians and criminologists believe the actual number could be much higher, possibly reaching into the hundreds. Holmes's depravity extended beyond killing. He reportedly harvested body parts to sell for medical study and used his hotel's design to ensure no one escaped. His horrific crimes came to light after a fire in his building exposed many of the secret torture chambers. Authorities investigated and found evidence linking Holmes to several disappearances and deaths. His trial in 1895 captivated the nation, revealing the gruesome details of his murder castle and his cold-blooded actions. Holmes displayed no remorse, maintaining a calm and calculated demeanor as evidence piled up against him. Ultimately, Holmes was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. In 1896, he was hanged, ending one of America's earliest serial killer reigns. His story has continued to fascinate the public, inspiring numerous books, films, and documentaries that explore his dark genius and monstrous legacy. The murder castle remains a chilling symbol of how evil can hide behind a facade of normalcy. Albert Fish, also known by nicknames such as the Gray Man and the Brooklyn Vampire, was an American serial killer, cannibal, and child molester active in the early 20th century. His crimes were so disturbing that Fish remains one of the most grotesque figures in American criminal history. Fish targeted young children, whom he abducted, tortured, and murdered. He also engaged in cannibalism, which added a horrific layer to his already unfathomable acts. Fish's background was marked by severe psychological issues, including sadomasochism and possibly schizophrenia. He openly confessed to killing and eating several children, describing his crimes in disturbing detail in letters to the families of his victims. His ability to confess so openly and calmly baffled investigators and horrified the public. The psychological torment Fish inflicted on his victims was part of a twisted compulsion that went far beyond typical serial killing patterns. His arrest in 1934 came after a surviving to provide crucial information. During his trial, Fish's bizarre behavior and shocking confessions made headlines, exposing the depth of his depravity. Despite attempts by his defense to claim insanity, the jury found Fish sane and guilty of murder. The case revealed disturbing insights into mental illness, criminal pathology, and the darkest corners of human nature. Albert Fish was sentenced to death and executed in the electric chair in 1936. His story remains a chilling example of extreme human depravity combined with severe mental illness. His crimes shocked a nation and left a permanent mark on the history of American crime. To this day, Fish is often referenced in discussions about the psychology of serial killers and the limits of human cruelty. Jack the Ripper is perhaps the most infamous unidentified serial killer in history. Operating in London's Whitechapel district in 1888, the Ripper targeted vulnerable female prostitutes, brutally murdering and mutilating at least 5 women in a chilling spree. The savagery and precision of the mutilations suggested the killer had some anatomical or surgical knowledge, which only deepened the public's fear and fascination. The Whitechapel murders quickly became a media sensation, with the press fueling panic and speculation. Despite extensive investigations by police and numerous theories, the killer was never identified. Various suspects have been proposed over the years, ranging from butchers and doctors to members of the British upper class, but none have been definitively proven to be Jack the Ripper. This enduring mystery has only added to the killer's notoriety. The killings highlighted the social and economic hardships faced by women in Victorian London. Many victims were impoverished and marginalized, making them easy prey. The case also exposed flaws in police work and raised awareness about the need for better law enforcement methods. Jack the Ripper's murders led to increased public concern about urban crime and safety, influencing future policing strategies. More than a century later, Jack the Ripper remains a cultural icon of terror. His story has inspired countless books, movies, and research, symbolizing the darkest aspects of human nature and the limits of justice. The mystery surrounding his identity continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts, making Jack the Ripper an enduring figure in the annals of criminal history. The Zodiac Killer was an enigmatic and elusive serial murderer who operated in Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He is confirmed to have killed at least 5 people, though he claimed responsibility for many more. The killer gained notoriety by sending taunting letters and cryptograms to the press and police, often boasting about his crimes and daring authorities to catch him. The Zodiac's method typically involved attacking young couples in remote locations using guns or knives. His ability to evade capture for years and his mysterious communications made him a media sensation. His letters contained complex ciphers, some of which remain unsolved to this day, adding an element of cryptic intrigue to the case. Despite numerous suspects over the decades, the Zodiac Killer's true identity remains unknown. Investigators and amateur sleuths have proposed various names, but no conclusive evidence has emerged. The case has become a defining mystery in American true crime, partly because of the killer's psychological manipulation and the eerie nature of his correspondence. The Zodiac Killer's story reflects a chilling combination of brutality and cunning. His legacy is one of fear, fascination, and frustration for law enforcement. Even today, the case continues to captivate the public imagination and inspire books, films, and investigations as the search for the truth about the Zodiac Killer endures. Andrei Chikatilo, known as the Butcher of Rostov, was a Soviet serial killer whose reign of terror spanned from 1978 to 1990. Responsible for the murders of at least 52 women and children, Chikatilo's crimes were marked by extreme violence, mutilation, and cannibalism. He targeted victims he often lured from train stations or rural areas, using charm and manipulation to gain their trust. His killing spree exposed the limitations and challenges of the Soviet criminal justice system, which was initially reluctant to acknowledge the existence of a serial killer. Bureaucratic red tape and denial slowed the investigation, allowing Chikatilo to continue his atrocities for over a decade. Eventually, persistent police work and forensic advances led to his arrest. Chikatilo's trial was a sensation in the USSR, revealing horrifying details of his crimes and psychological state. He admitted to his killings, describing them in cold, detached terms. His motives combined sexual sadism, psychosis, and a deep-seated hatred for his victims. The case highlighted how a brutal killer could evade capture in a society unprepared for such violent crime. Convicted and sentenced to death, Chikatilo was executed by firing squad in 1994. His legacy is one of extreme brutality and a stark reminder of the importance of effective law enforcement. The Butcher of Rostov remains one of the most notorious serial killers of the 20th century, his crimes reflecting both human evil and systemic failure. John Wayne Gacy, dubbed the Killer Clown, was an American serial killer and sex offender active in the 1970s. Known for performing as Pogo the Clown at community events, Gacy used his friendly public persona to mask his horrific crimes. He sexually assaulted, tortured, and murdered at least 33 teenage boys and young men, many of whom he buried beneath his suburban home. Gacy's ability to lead a double life shocked the nation. To neighbors and colleagues, he was a well-liked contractor and community figure, but behind closed doors, he was a sadistic predator. His victims were often lured to his home with promises of work or money before being subjected to unspeakable horrors. The investigation into Gacy's crimes began after several young men went missing in Chicago. Police eventually searched his home and discovered a grim scene: bodies buried in the crawl space, others found in nearby rivers. His arrest exposed the depth of his depravity and sparked widespread fear and outrage. Convicted in 1980, Gacy was sentenced to death and spent 14 years on death row before being executed by lethal injection in 1994. His story remains one of the most notorious examples of a serial killer hiding in plain sight, reminding society how evil can lurk beneath a seemingly normal exterior. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, an acronym for Bind, Torture, Kill, terrorized Wichita, Kansas between 1974 and 1991. Rader's crimes involved the abduction, binding, torture, and murder of 10 victims, mostly women and families. Despite the brutality of his acts, Rader lived a seemingly ordinary life as a family man, church leader, and compliance officer, which allowed him to evade suspicion for decades. The BTK Killer was notorious for taunting police and media with letters, poems, and cryptic messages describing his crimes. His communications showcased his arrogance and desire for attention, further unsettling the community. After years of silence, Rader resumed sending letters in 2004, which ultimately led to his capture. Rader's downfall came after he sent a floppy disk to the police that contained metadata tracing back to his church computer. His arrest in 2005 shocked the nation, revealing a man who had maintained a facade of normalcy while committing horrific murders. His confessions detailed a chilling combination of control, manipulation, and cold calculation. Convicted on multiple counts of first-degree murder, Rader received 10 consecutive life sentences without parole. His case remains a disturbing example of how a serial killer can live undetected within a community, exploiting trust and authority while committing unspeakable crimes. Harold Shipman was a British general practitioner and one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history. Between 1975 and 1998, he is believed to have murdered over 200 of his patients, primarily elderly women, by administering lethal doses of painkillers. Shipman's position as a trusted doctor enabled him to kill with impunity for years, betraying the very oath he took to save lives. Shipman's killing spree went undetected partly due to the natural mortality of his elderly patients and his ability to falsify medical records and death certificates. Many assumed the deaths were from natural causes, allowing him to continue his crimes unnoticed. Suspicion arose only when an undertaker noticed an unusually high death rate among Shipman's patients. The investigation revealed Shipman's dark secret and led to a nationwide review of medical practices in the UK. The scale of his betrayal horrified the public and medical professionals alike. His case raised serious questions about oversight, patient safety, and the vulnerability of trusting doctor-patient relationships. Shipman was convicted of 15 murders in 2000 and sentenced to life imprisonment. He died by suicide in prison in 2004. His legacy prompted major reforms in the regulation of medical practitioners and the procedures surrounding unexplained deaths, aiming to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Ted Bundy was one of America's most infamous serial killers, active primarily during the 1970s across several states, including Washington, Utah, and Florida. Known for his striking good looks and charm, Bundy used these traits to gain the trust of young women, often pretending to be injured or needing help. Once he lured them into his trap, he would abduct, assault, and murder them, often returning to the bodies to commit further acts of violence and necrophilia. Bundy's crimes were particularly chilling because of his ability to blend into society. Despite multiple arrests, he managed to escape from custody twice, once by jumping from a courthouse window and once by escaping from jail. His cross-country killing spree and escapes captivated the media and terrified the public, showing how cunning and manipulative he truly was. During his highly publicized trial in Florida, Bundy represented himself, using his charisma to manipulate proceedings. His calm, confident demeanor contrasted sharply with the horrific nature of his crimes, unsettling jurors and spectators. Ultimately, he was convicted and sentenced to death for the murders of several women, including the brutal killing of Florida State University student Kimberly Leach. Bundy spent over a decade on death row before being executed in the electric chair in 1989. His case remains one of the most studied in criminal psychology, illustrating how a charismatic and intelligent individual can hide a dark, violent nature behind a seemingly normal facade. His story continues to serve as a cautionary tale about deception and evil. Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, was a serial killer and sex offender who murdered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. His crimes were particularly gruesome, involving rape, dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism. Dahmer often targeted vulnerable young men, luring them to his apartment with promises of money or alcohol, where he would then drug, strangle, and kill them. Despite the horrific nature of his crimes, Dahmer managed to evade suspicion for years. His murders only came to light when one intended victim managed to escape and alerted the police. Upon searching Dahmer's apartment, investigators found evidence of his atrocities, including preserved body parts, photographs of victims, and human remains. During his trial, Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane, though the jury found him legally sane and responsible for his actions. He expressed remorse but was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms. His case revealed disturbing insights into severe mental illness, extreme antisocial behavior, and the dark complexities of human psychology. In 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate in prison. His crime shocked the world and continued to fascinate criminologists, psychologists, and true crime enthusiasts. Dahmer's legacy is a grim reminder of how dangerous and hidden monstrous behavior can be. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, was a serial killer, rapist, and burglar who terrorized Southern California in the mid-1980s. His brutal home invasions often involved violent assaults, sexual attacks, and murders, usually committed under the cover of darkness. Ramirez was known for his unpredictable and sadistic behavior, targeting entire families and individuals without warning. Ramirez's crimes were accompanied by disturbing satanic symbolism, which he openly embraced during his trial and in media interviews. His use of satanic imagery and his chilling lack of remorse added to the widespread panic he caused in Los Angeles and neighboring communities. His spree lasted about 2 years before his arrest. After a massive manhunt, Ramirez was captured in 1985 when residents recognized him from media coverage and apprehended him until police arrived. His trial was highly publicized, where he acted defiantly, even flashing the devil horns hand gesture. He was convicted of 13 counts of murder and multiple other charges, receiving a death sentence. Ramirez remained on death row until his death from complications related to lymphoma in 2013. His legacy is marked by his brutal violence and the fear he instilled, becoming a chilling example of a remorseless and chaotic killer in modern American history. David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam, was a notorious serial killer who terrorized New York City between 1976 and 1977. Using a .44 caliber revolver, he randomly targeted young women and couples, shooting 6 people to death and wounding 7 others. His attacks sparked widespread fear and panic throughout the city, which was already struggling with high crime rates. Berkowitz's crimes were especially frightening due to the randomness of his attacks and the mysterious notes he sent to the media and police. He claimed to be commanded by a demon-possessed dog owned by his neighbor, though this was widely considered a delusion or an attempt to avoid responsibility. His letters mocked police efforts and heightened media sensationalism. After a lengthy investigation, Berkowitz was arrested in August 1977 when a parking ticket led to his identification. During his confession, he admitted to the shootings and expressed a mix of remorse and insanity claims. He was found competent to stand trial and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. Berkowitz has since renounced violence and become a born-again Christian, engaging in prison ministry. His case remains a classic example of a spree killer whose crimes profoundly impacted a major city's sense of safety during a turbulent time. Joseph DeAngelo, formerly a police officer, was identified in 2018 as the Golden State Killer, a criminal responsible for at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and numerous burglaries across California during the 1970s and 1980s. For decades, his identity remained unknown despite multiple monikers including the East Area Rapist and Original Night Stalker, as his crimes spanned vast areas and decades. DeAngelo's attacks typically involve stalking couples or individuals at home, followed by brutal sexual assault and murder. His familiarity with police procedures and discipline helped him evade detection. Advances in forensic DNA analysis and genealogical databases eventually led to his identification and arrest. His arrest ended a decades-long mystery and brought relief to many victims and families. D'Angelo pleaded guilty in 2020 to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The case is notable for its groundbreaking use of forensic genealogy to solve cold cases, setting a precedent for law enforcement worldwide. D'Angelo's story highlights both the horrors of his crimes and the evolving tools available to bring justice. Israel Keyes was a highly organized and elusive American serial killer whose crimes only came to light after his 2012 arrest. Unlike many serial killers, Keyes did not seek attention. He carefully planned his murders and traveled across the country to commit them, making it difficult to link his crimes. He confessed to at least 11 murders, but is suspected of many more. Keyes' method involved abducting victims, often at random, and using remote kill kits buried in advance to dispose of bodies and evidence. His meticulous planning and lack of remorse distinguished him from impulsive killers, and he described his actions with chilling detachment. His arrest followed the kidnapping and murder of an Alaskan woman. During interrogation, Keyes cooperated but eventually took his own life in jail. His case remains less publicized, but is of great interest to law enforcement and criminologists studying organized offenders. Israel Keyes represents a particularly frightening type of killer, methodical, mobile, and emotionally detached, capable of horrific violence without drawing attention to himself. Charles Manson was the manipulative leader of the Manson family cult, responsible for a series of brutal murders in California in 1969. Though Manson did not directly commit the murders, including the high-profile killing of actress Sharon Tate, he orchestrated the attacks, convincing his followers that violence would spark an apocalyptic race war he called Helter Skelter. Manson's charismatic and controlling personality enabled him to recruit and brainwash vulnerable young followers, molding them into instruments of his violent ideology. His apocalyptic vision was fueled by distorted beliefs and racial hatred, and the murders were intended to ignite societal chaos. The trial of Manson and his followers was highly publicized and symbolized the dark turn of the 1960s counterculture. Manson was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy and sentenced to life imprisonment. He remained incarcerated until his death in 2017. The Manson case remains one of the most infamous examples of cult influence and psychological manipulation leading to extreme violence. Thank you for watching. These stories reveal the darkest corners of the human mind, but by understanding them, we stay aware and vigilant. Which serial killer haunted you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.